It's 7 p.m. Friday, October 11th, here in Seoul.
Coming up on News Center tonight. South Korea and Japan kick off consultations at the WTO over Tokyo's trade restrictions against Seoul. Eyes will be on whether both sides can resolve their heated trade dispute.
South Korea's finance minister announces a strategy to respond to Japan's trade curbs by helping companies get locally sourced parts and materials. The government also says it will spend $1.6 billion every year for the next 5 years to boost the nation's industrial competitiveness.
Railway services across the country are expected to come to a standstill over the weekend as unionized workers stage a 3-day strike, demanding better pay and working conditions.
And BTS are set to return to their world tour with a stop in Saudi Arabia. Fans both in Riyadh and Seoul gear up to welcome back the K-pop megastars. News Center begins now.
Good evening to our viewers in Asia and hello to others watching from around the world. Welcome to Arirang News Center, live from Seoul. I'm Han-daeun.
And I'm Noam. Thank you as always for joining us this evening. Now, it has been exactly 100 days since Japan imposed trade curbs on South Korea in July. And today, the two countries began their consultations at the World Trade Organization in Geneva.
This is the first step of the dispute settlement process at the WTO. Our Yoon Jung-min has the top story.
Trade officials from Seoul and Tokyo started their meeting at the World Trade Organization in Geneva on Friday at around 10:30 a.m. local time to discuss Japan's export restrictions on South Korea. The bilateral consultations are the very first step when a trade dispute is brought to the International Dispute Settlement Body, and the talks are usually carried out at the working level. However, given the significance of the matter, Director Generals from the two countries are sitting down for the meeting this time. The South Korean Trade Ministry's Director General for Trade Legal Affairs, Chung Hae-kwan, is meeting his Japanese counterpart, Junichiro Kuroda. According to South Korean government sources, third parties, the European Union and Taiwan, have asked to join in the consultations, but Japan has reportedly rejected such requests. The EU has pointed out that Japan's export curbs on Korea will affect the global supply chain of goods. The EU supplies machinery related to chip manufacture to South Korea, while Taiwan is trading semiconductor materials with Korea. Seoul and Tokyo are expected to get the results of Friday's consultations on Saturday morning Korea time. If the talks do not go well, Seoul is expected to send a formal request to set up a panel at the WTO to make a ruling on the matter. Back in July, Tokyo imposed export restrictions on South Korea on 3 high-tech materials which are crucial for the production of semiconductors and displays. The South Korean government has been stressing that Japan's export curbs violate WTO rules and the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
The South Korean government has announced it's going to invest more than $1.6 billion every year for the next 5 years to strengthen the competitiveness of local companies making the key materials, parts, and equipment cut off by Japan's trade curbs. Hong Yu with the details.
Marking 100 days since Tokyo slapped export curbs on South Korea, Seoul's Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi announced on Friday at the first Competency Committee meeting for key industrial materials, parts, and equipment that the government will draw up a priority list of supplies for investment and prepare a customized strategy to cope with the export curbs. In order to push ahead systematically with the strategy, the government has 3 main plans. First, $1.6 billion a year will go into strengthening the competitiveness of firms producing key industrial materials, parts, and equipment. The government will promote the revision of a special law that serves as a legal basis for the measures by the end of 2019. Also, it will find cooperative models between companies and provide customized aid for firms that implement such solutions. $227 million from the extra budget has been approved for this. Lastly is securing the supply chain of goods on the priority list. Hong said pan-governmental efforts to deal with Japan's export curbs have been effective in diversifying import partners and boosting private investment. But the core of strengthening competitiveness of firms, according to Hong, lies in creating win-win cooperation between big companies and SMEs. Before the start of this meeting, Hong asked companies some of the difficulties they're facing. And the companies asked for the 52-hour workweek regulations to be eased for research and development. To that, the minister said complementary measures for the 52-hour workweek will be announced within this month, as some SMEs are having difficulties following the system. Hong-yu, Arirang News.
President Moon says his administration and Korean businesses have coped well with Japan's trade curbs. In a regular policy meeting with the finance minister Hong Nam-gi, who doubles as the deputy prime minister, the president said this has become a chance for Korean firms to start localizing and diversifying their supplies of materials, parts, and equipment. He also ordered his economic team to speed up their fiscal spending to boost the economy. Now we bring you our second report of our two-part series on how South Korea has been responding to Japan's trade curbs. Our Ji-young today takes a look at South Korean firms' efforts to keep their businesses running as usual, localizing key high-tech materials and diversifying supply channels.
In a bid to reduce their dependence on Japanese supplies, Korean chip and display makers have turned to domestically produced materials and are trying to diversify their suppliers worldwide. South Korea's switch to local suppliers had long been anticipated amid Japan's export curbs on three key materials used for the production of chips and displays, namely photoresist, hydrogen fluoride, and fluorinated polyamide. According to an industry official, Korea's major semiconductor and display firms, including Samsung Electronics and SK hynix, are in the process of applying local substitutes of hydrogen fluoride in their product lines.
After conducting multiple tests, we've started using locally produced hydrogen fluoride in our factories to replace Japanese supplies.
Hydrogen fluoride is a critically important material in the chip and display industries. And according to the head of the Semiconductor and Display Technology Association in Korea, over 80% of hydrogen fluoride used in the country had been imported from Japan.
After the curb, many domestic semiconductor and display firms have been striving to diversify their hydrogen fluoride suppliers, including those from the local market, China and Taiwan.
The expert added that semiconductors take longer to be produced than displays, meaning that the display industry is paving the way for the major change in suppliers.
For the past 6 years, domestic companies like Seoulbrain and RAM Technology have been developing technologies to produce high-purity hydrogen fluoride. Domestic semiconductor and display makers were able to apply these companies' products almost right away as they readily had the technologies.
The expert predicted that in case of hydrogen fluoride, complete localization would be possible by early next year. Ji-young, Arirang News.
It appears President Moon Jae-in will not be attending the enthronement ceremony of Japanese Emperor Nattos later this month. An official at South Korea's presidential office said that while this has not been confirmed, the chances of Moon attending are extremely slim. This could mean Prime Minister Lee Na-kyun will attend on his behalf. If the Prime Minister does go, it could help improve ties between South Korea and Japan, which have deteriorated badly because of Tokyo's trade restrictions on Seoul. The Japanese media have reported that if the South Korean Prime Minister attends, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe would be willing to hold brief talks with him. Railway workers here in Korea have started a 72-hour strike demanding higher pay and better working conditions. The country's railway operator Korail says it's doing all it can to minimize passengers' inconvenience. Kim Jae-hee has the latest.
The Korean Railway Workers Union began a 72-hour strike at 9 a.m. local time on Friday. Given that the industrial action will continue until Monday morning, the CEO of the Korail announced an official apology on Friday and said he will try his best to minimize disruptions for commuters and ensure safety. During peak commute hours, Korail will deploy substitute workers and military personnel to ensure trains in the capital area run as smoothly as possible. It aims to ensure train operations in Seoul remain over 80% of usual levels to minimize inconvenience. The walkout is expected to cut manpower to around 60% of normal levels, even with the injection of substitute workers. During the strike, the operation rate of subways in Seoul during off-peak hours is projected to be about 88% of usual levels. High-speed inner-city KTX services are expected to be running at some 72%. The slower Haemaeul and Mugunga passenger train services will run around 62% and 67% of normal levels, respectively. Passengers are already experiencing discomfort.
I live in Busan, so I have to take around 10 to 20 trains every month from Busan to Seoul. Even today, I made a reservation for the ticket in advance, but I'm still on the wait list. I'll probably have to take the Mugunghwa train now.
I heard the strike lasts for 3 days. I hope customers don't experience too many problems. Especially as the strike lasts during the weekend, I feel there's difficulty booking tickets.
The union and KORAIL have held more than a dozen rounds of talks since May, but couldn't narrow their differences. The union is demanding higher pay for KORAIL workers, the hiring of more workers, and better working conditions. It says it'll launch another strike in November if the demands are not met. This is the first time in 3 years the Korean Railway Workers Union has launched a strike. There was transport chaos in South Korea in late 2016 when they walked off the job for 74 days. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
The South Korean army plans to cut the number of troops as the country faces a demographic cliff in the coming years. Instead, it plans to boost defense capabilities with the early deployment of military tech and next-generation weapons. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Saddled with a chronically low birth rate and an aging population, South Korea faces a demographic cliff, which is forecast to also affect the country's armed forces. So by 2022, the South Korean army says it plans to cut the number of troops by 100,000 to 365,000. This was announced in its report submitted Friday to Parliament's audit of the government, and it's part of efforts to promote its Defense 2.0 scheme. There was a cut this year of 20,000 troops. The army said reforms have been carried out already in more than 29% of all units, with the rest of them to be done by 2025. And to make up for the loss in troops, it plans to beef up its tech-based capabilities, including the early deployment of unmanned aerial vehicles, as well as next-generation weapons that use lasers and artificial intelligence. To better prepare for warfare involving drones, it plans to develop laser-based anti-aircraft systems by 2023 that could cut off small drones at close range. In 2017, the number of men in their 20s in South Korea was 350,000. But by 2022, that number is expected to drop to between 220,000 and 250,000 as the country's decades-long low birth rate starts to bite. At the current rate, the pool of military-eligible men is expected to shrink by 20 to 30,000 every year from 2023. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Since South Korea started allowing the use of personal cell phones in the military early this year, the number of soldiers deserting and committing sex crimes has declined. Researchers at the Korea Institute for Defense Analyses have found desertions are down 11% and sex crimes by 32%. The study also found that soldiers feel communication has improved greatly. Those who said they had good communication with the outside rose from 66% to 97%. Those who said communication within the military was good rose from 57% to 84%. However, the military is thinking about adding more security measures because there have been side effects such as gambling and security violations. The U.S. and China have struck an optimistic tone after their first day of trade talks in Washington. Investor sentiment seems to have also been lifted, but there's still some skepticism. Lee Kyung-eun has the details.
The stocks on Wall Street went up overnight. This in response to rising hopes for the ongoing U.S.-China trade talks, which kicked off in Washington on Thursday local time. Chinese Vice Premier Ryu Hyun-jin is leading the Beijing delegation, and U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer are on the American side for the two-day meeting. This is the first such meeting in 3 months, with the previous round in Shanghai ending with no deal. As of now, no details have been revealed, but President Trump hinted at a positive outcome.
I think it's going really well, I will say. I think it's going really well. So we had a very, very good negotiation with China. We're going to see them tomorrow right here, and it's going very well.
On the same day, he also tweeted that it was a big day of negotiations with China and added that he will meet China's Ryu on Friday at the White House. Given these optimistic comments by Trump, there is rising possibility of a small deal. Bloomberg and foreign reports say the two sides may agree on a partial agreement. It could include a currency agreement and additional agricultural purchases by China in exchange for a delay of tariff hikes by the U.S. Washington had previously announced it would impose a 30% tariff on Chinese goods starting next week. China had also echoed the optimistic sentiment of the U.S. Ryu said that China has come with great sincerity and is willing to make progress with Washington on trade balance, market access, and investor protection. Meanwhile, the industry's general consensus is slightly more pessimistic, with many saying a big deal seems very unlikely. However, with the two sides proactively engaging in talks, the world is paying close attention to the outcome on Friday. 이경은, Arirang News.
In other news, an Iranian oil tanker has caught fire after an explosion near the coast of Saudi Arabia. The national Iranian oil company to which the vessel belongs claims that it was hit by two suspected missiles but did not provide evidence. The incident damaged two of its tankers and caused oil to leak into the Red Sea, but there were no reports of casualties and the situation is said to be under control. Meanwhile, there was no immediate comment from Saudi Arabia or the U.S. Navy on who they think is responsible for the suspected attack. The incident comes amid heightened tensions between Iran and Saudi Arabia following a series of attacks on oil tankers and production facilities in the region. Typhoon Hagibis, which is expected to be the most powerful typhoon to hit Tokyo in decades, is also expected to impact Korea. Weather authorities here say strong winds and high waves are expected in the southern and eastern coastal regions, including Jeju Island over the weekend. The season's 19th typhoon is currently over waters south of Japan and is projected to make landfall in Tokyo early on Sunday morning. Residents in coastal areas are advised to take precaution as the storm is expected to pack winds of over 100 kilometers per hour. In Major League Baseball, despite a league-best 106 wins in the regular season, the LA Dodgers failed to make it to the division rounds of the postseason. And now that the season is over, South Korean pitcher Ryu Hyun-jin is on the open market. Lee Min-sun reports.
LA Dodgers season is over after they suffered a shocking postseason defeat to the Washington Nationals. Despite a league-best 106 wins in the regular season, the Dodgers were eliminated in the National League Division Series, and this year's season came to an end for both the team and South Korean pitcher Ryu Hyun-jin. Ryu is now headed to the open market. Ryu said in an interview that this year will remain as his most memorable season, and he will consider signing with a team that have a good record and recognize his value. His agent Scott Boras, who also worked with Ryu when he first entered the U.S. Major League in 2012, is confident of Ryu's value in the free agent market. Boras said in an interview that he is aiming at a high-salary multi-year contract. Major League's official website ranked Ryu third among the starting pitchers who are on the open market for 2020. 2019 was the best season of Ryu's career. He achieved the league's best ERA of 2.32 and his career high with 14 wins. Ryu was the starting pitcher for the Dodgers opening day and the All-Star game. He also received the NL Pitcher of the Month award in May. Lee Min-sun, Arirang News.
Now to Oslo, Norway, where this year's Nobel Peace Prize was announced just about an hour ago. The much-coveted award went to Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed for his efforts to end a border conflict with neighboring Eritrea while strengthening democracy in his country through political reform. He is mostly recognized for brokering a peace deal with Eritrea that ended a war between the two African nations that raged on for 2 decades. Ahmed becomes the 100th winner of the prestigious award, and he is slated to receive a cash prize of 9 million Swedish crowns or $900,000 US. There has been a great deal of expectations over who would receive the prize, with Greta Thunberg, a 16-year-old Swedish climate change activist, widely tipped among the favorite candidates. Prime Minister Ahmed, during his visit to South Korea in August, mentioned the resemblance that Ethiopia-Eritrea relations have with inter-Korean relations, saying he hopes to see an improvement in Seoul-Pyongyang ties, just as Ethiopia and Eritrea thawed their decades-long crisis. K-pop boy band BTS are back on their world stadium tour, and their latest stop is Saudi Arabia. Our Kim Bo-kyung shows us how Riyadh is preparing to welcome BTS and what the group are preparing for fans here in Seoul.
BTS has turned Riyadh purple. Lights turned landmarks in Saudi Arabia's capital city purple, the signature color of South Korean boy band BTS, on Thursday local time. It was to welcome the group, who are preparing to perform at the King Fahd International Stadium on Friday local time. Though K-pop stars have performed before in the Middle East, this is the first time for a South Korean boy group to have a stadium all to themselves in the kingdom. BTS fans wearing abaya, a robe-like dress covering the whole body except for heads, feet, and hands, were eager to buy goods from the booths, and also sang BTS songs out loud outside the stadium plaza, showing how excited they were to meet their idols. The Love Yourself, Speak Yourself World Stadium Tour will end in Seoul on October 29th. Meanwhile, BTS are opening a pop-up megastore in Gangnam-gu district in Seoul. According to Big Hit Entertainment on Thursday, this pop-up store will open for around 80 days starting from next Friday. The 4-story building will be filled with BTS-related products and backgrounds from the group's music videos. This store will mostly be decorated in pink, which is the signature color of the group's song Boy With Love of their latest album. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
The biggest robot exhibition in Korea, the annual Robot World Exhibition, has kicked off at the Kintex Exhibition Center in Goyang, Gyeonggi-do Province. Our Kim Hae-sung has more on the latest robot technologies.
More than 160 companies from 10 countries have unveiled their latest robot technologies at the 14th Robot World Exhibition.
Under the theme Smart Industry, Smart Life, industrial robots and delivery robots like self-driving robots are dominating this year's exhibition.
Collaborative industrial robots that can work alongside humans or interact with humans directly have been in the spotlight. With sensors, they can start or stop operations when there's human contact to help prevent industrial accidents.
Korean and foreign companies in the automobile and electronics sectors have already started using our products this year. Collaborative robots can not only work 24/7, they can also work with humans, helping raise productivity and efficiency.
The growing shift from mass production to small batch, low volume production has led to a rising demand for robots. According to research company Statista, the global robot industry market size is expected to grow from $39 billion in 2017 to over $490 billion by 2025.
Demand is growing for autonomous delivery robots to enable more flexible ways of production and delivery. Autonomous driving and safe transportation is key. We have developed sensors so the robot can view the space in 3 dimensions instead of 2D, enhancing safety for delivery in hospitals and factory lines.
Delivery robots showcased at the expo can carry over 1,000 kilograms. The Korea Association of Robot Industry says more than 70,000 visitors, including tens of thousands of buyers, are expected to come to the expo, increasing exports and imports in the robot industry. The expo also offers a learning experience for high school students.
I've learnt about design and computer programming at school. It's great to see all kinds of real robots here.
The annual Robot World Exhibition will run through Saturday. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
For the first time in almost 4 decades, Iranian women have attended a World Cup qualifier in Tehran. Our Kim Da-mi tells us more about the historic day.
Cheering in joy and blowing horns, flag-draped Iranian women headed to their first soccer match in 38 years. The 2022 World Cup qualifier between Iran and Cambodia in Tehran on Thursday welcomed 3,500 Iranian women. Only 3,500 tickets in the 80,000-seat stadium were provided for women, and these sold out in less than 1 hour. The women were seated behind a 2-meter-high metal fence and had to enter the stadium 4 hours early to keep them separate from the male supporters. But despite this, many were happy just to be there.
This is an amazing feeling. For me, at least 20 to 23 years of longing and regret lies behind this.
Iran has banned female fans from stadiums since 1981 under the country's strict Islamic laws and customs. FIFA had demanded Iran allow women to stadiums after a fan set herself on fire and died while protesting against her arrest for attending a game.
They're so excited they're going to the stadium. God willing, there will be freedom sooner so that they can attend all matches, not just the national team matches. That will be much better.
FIFA said it will be working with the Iranian Football Federation to develop plans for women to attend domestic matches in the Iranian League. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Japan has reportedly redeployed a Patriot missile defense system in the heart of Tokyo. Japan's Kyodo News says the move is to strengthen security following North Korea's claimed firing of a submarine-launched ballistic missile. The Patriot is capable of intercepting short and medium-range ballistic missiles. If confirmed, it would be the first time in just over a year that Tokyo has deployed the battery. Apple CEO Tim Cook has defended the firm's decision to remove an application used by anti-government protesters in Hong Kong to track and avoid movements of police. Amid criticism over the removal, Cook wrote to Apple employees saying that over the past few days, the company received, quote, credible information that the app was used maliciously to target individual offices and properties where no police are present. His words, however, have been disputed as the app doesn't display areas without police presence. Civic groups say the map rather helps protesters avoid being targeted by Hong Kong police who use tear gas, water cannons and rubber bullets to break up crowds. The developer of HKMap.live has said Apple's decision was clearly a political one that suppresses freedom and human rights in Hong Kong. South Korean golfer Lee Jung-eun has won this year's top rookie prize on the women's tour. The world number 4 earned 1,273 points in the rookie standings, giving her more than a 750-point lead over the next best contender, Kristen Gilman of the US. Lee is the 13th player from South Korea to win the honor and the 5th Korean in a row. Those visiting Italy's canal city of Venice will have to pay an entrance fee of up to $11 starting next July. Venice's council voted to impose the new tax to help maintain the city, which has been suffering from over-tourism. Those visiting Venice to study or to work are expected to be exempt. It is that time now where we take a look at some of Arirang's digital media content.
And Onion News is back, taking a look at the top trending stories.
Hi everyone, I'm Minsun, a news reporter at Arirang TV. And here's today's Onion News. My name is $4 because I negotiated wage for South Korean workers with the U.S. military. This is part of self-introduction letter from an applicant to Korea Railroad Corporation or KORAIL. His self-introduction is actually from a popular TV drama series and had nothing to do with the applicant himself, but he still passed the screening. This was possible because KORAIL implemented so-called blind recruitment system in 2017. KORAIL gives all the applicants a chance to take the next round of tests if they fill out a certain amount in the self-introduction letter without checking the content. Other applicants who applied with cartoon characters' name or filled out application with meaningless text also passed the document screening. blind recruitment is meant to give chance to wider range of applicants, but it apparently has serious blind spots that need improvement. A scary bug that can cause skin irritations or blisters similar to burn symptom has been found in Korea. That bug is Pederus fuscipes, also known as burn bugs, which mainly inhabits in Southeast Asia. Last month, these bugs were reported from a university in Jeollabuk-do province, and soon after, these were found in other parts of the country. This bug is about 6 to 8 millimeters and looks similar to an ant with bright red or orange color. Toxic substance called pederine from the bug sticks to people's skin to leave burning sensation and symptoms. If you happen to see this bug, never touch it with your bare hands, but blow it away or use mosquito pesticide. Studying for a test can be quite exhausting, and having a study partner could help achieving daily and long-term goals. These days, instead of meeting others in person, Koreans are joining online groups where they share their studying time and goals and even punish each other for violating rules they created for themselves. They share their studying photo or video on SNS with hashtags like Bongstagram or Studygram. And there's even a mobile application that helps people share their study progress or encourage achieving goals. The number of users was only 300 in January last year, but increased more than 30 times to 10,000 in June this year. Some say this is becoming a trend among young Koreans who want encouragement to study harder but don't want to waste their time and emotion by meeting others in person. That's it from This On You today. Make sure to like this video and subscribe our channel. Bye!
There's perfect fall weather over the weekend, but we should wear several layers to keep us warm in the mornings and nights.
For more details, let's turn to our Michelle Park at the Weather Center. Michelle.
Now, tomorrow's weather will be great for an outing. Now, Seoul and most parts of the country will get a good amount of sunshine during the day, although the southern regions will see a mix of clouds in the afternoon. And meanwhile, the extremely strong Typhoon Hagibis is expected to make a landfall near Tokyo this weekend. Now, Korea will be indirectly affected, especially along the south and east coasts, which will see some strong winds and high waves. Now, alerts are expected to be issued in these areas at around 11 p.m. tonight, so if you are in these areas, please be careful. Now, as usual, we are seeing huge temperature gaps throughout the day. Now, in the morning, the mercury will be in the mid to high teens. Seoul will be waking up to 14 degrees Celsius and similar readings across the nation. And into the day, the sunny skies will warm us up into 23 degrees Celsius for Seoul, Busan, and Jeju, and a little higher for Daegu and also for Gwangju. And mostly dry weather is on tap for the next couple of days, except for in parts of Gangwon-do province. You might want to keep a raincoat ready between Monday and Tuesday. Now I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That will wrap it up for today's Arirang News Center. Thank you as always for watching.
Keep it tuned to Arirang for news in depth, coming up in just a few minutes.